welcome to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak here in Ma'ale Adumim, my hometown, just east of Jerusalem in Israel. Once again, I'm recording from home, even though things are loosening up and have gone back to work. I am staying away because I can do this from home, and as long as I can do it from home for another few weeks, I like to be extra cautious, because I think with every city and every state and every nation, we've learned that as we begin to open things up, we get a second spike of the coronavirus, and I'd like to be able to avoid that. So, as long as I can continue for a little bit longer recording from home, that is what I'm going to do. For my own safety and for the safety of others. As a matter of fact, today is the fourth day of Iyar 5780. It's April 28th, 2020. It's Yom HaZikaron, Israel Memorial Day. A very solemn day here in Israel. Very, very honored day, laden with emotion, which is followed immediately at sunset by Yom HaAtzma'ut, Israel Independence Day, which is a very, very joyous and exciting and loud and happy day. And it's a real, every year, no matter how many years you experience it, it's a real emotional roller coaster. You go from the very, very solemn, somber, introspective day of Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day, to the uplifting day of Yom HaAtzma'ut. And this year, it's all a little bit different than in past years. You can guess the reason why. Because of Corona, all the many, many outdoor, what do we call them in English? A tekes in Hebrew. The ceremonies and gatherings which take place, including a national gathering where the president of Israel speaks and other notables gather together, as well as the general public, is not happening this year. All our observance is pretty much in our own homes. And of course, on Yom HaZikaron, the families of the bereaved families who have lost members, fathers, brothers, sons, uncles, grandparents in wars, go to the graves, go to the military cemeteries where their loved ones are buried. This is a long honored tradition, and it provides a certain sense of emotional relief, catharsis, a way for a family to express their grief and to be strengthened by others. And this year, the government is not allowing people to visit the graves of their loved ones on this Memorial Day. So it's very difficult, very, very difficult. It's not easy. It's cruel in a way, but it's necessary. And I think people understand that, but it doesn't make it any easier for all these families who this is a very, very, very important day to be at the graveside of their loved ones, and they can't do it. My heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to them in any case, this year and every other year, but especially everybody here in Israel is aware of this situation and aware of that particular wrinkle in the situation, and everybody is very, very, very sympathetic, very empathetic. But we got to get through this corona as unscathed as we can. Israel's record has been pretty admirable, and we all would like to keep it that way, God willing. But despite the fact that there are no public gatherings this year to honor and mark Yom HaZikaron, Israel Memorial Day, everybody is marking it. You know, the TV and radio is completely dedicated to Yom HaZikaron on, if you happen to have cable TV, you know, it might have 50, might have 100 channels. They're all turned off for this day of 24 hours, with the exception of those channels which are running programming that is relevant to Yom HaZikaron. Much of the programming each year are, videos documenting the lives and deaths of many soldiers, and interviews with loved ones. And it is a 24 hours of a very, 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 I can't say it enough, serious, somber, and introspective feeling, but also a tremendous feeling of solidarity, of pride, and of gratitude. Tremendous gratitude to all those who fell, who gave their lives so that we can live free in our land. And there's no other way to put it. Everybody who is a soldier and is a soldier in a combat unit is there by choice, and they chose to risk their lives, and in some cases to sacrifice their lives for others. The day also honors the lives and deaths of victims of terror, which is no small number here in Israel. I'm going to give you the numbers in just a moment. The victims of terror, of course, were not soldiers who had consciously made the decision to put themselves on the front line for the sake of the entire nation. They were simple private citizens like me and you, who were walking down the street, or having a cup of coffee, or ordering a slice of pizza, or at a wedding, or at whatever, and their life was violently and brutally taken away from them by an act of terror. 23,816 soldiers have fallen in Israel's wars since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, and 3,153 people have been murdered at the hands of terrorists. And each one of those lives is a precious life, and each one of those lives that has been lost is the loss of future generations of Am Yisrael, of the people of Israel, and it's a tremendous loss, each and every one. Yom HaZikaron. We posted a few different videos on YouTube, on Facebook. I hope it's not, we're not overdoing it. We're not trying to bring people down. We're not trying to bum you out. But if you can plug yourselves in for a few minutes and be part of the experience that we're experiencing today, and thusly pay tribute to the fallen soldiers of Israel and to their families who bear the loss day in and day out, year in and year out, it would be a tremendous gesture, and one that would certainly reverberate and be felt here in Israel, because when people open up their hearts to other people, it gets to them. They get the message, and that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Tonight, Yom HaAtzma'ut. So I'm recording during the day. By the time you hear this, it might already be Yom HaAtzma'ut, and the mood will be completely different. And that is that's just part of the process. It's the quick switch, the quick flip from sadness and sobriety to happiness and there are all sorts of songs, sad songs, which accompany our observance of Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day, throughout the 24 hours, and they're completely and immediately switched with songs of exaltation on Yom HaAtzma'ut. And you may say, well, that sounds kind of cruel, I mean, you want to honor, but it's not cruel. It's actually the best way to honor people, because we could not possibly be celebrating Yom HaAtzma'ut, Independence Day, with such joy and with such satisfaction, or even at all, if it weren't for the sacrifices that people have made. And we wouldn't be honoring those people if we didn't completely wrap ourselves up in the tremendous, unbridled joy of being an independent people, a free people in our land, having returned after 2,000 years from exile and from dispersion and from lack of any kind of sovereignty or self-government. Here we are, back in the land of Israel. Here we are, back where our prophets told us we would be. And it seems, the galut, the exile was endless and devastating and painful, but it seems like we're right in time now. We're right in schedule, because this is God's schedule. It's God's doing, and God's doing with a lot of help and effort, hishdalut, as we say in Hebrew. When we work to make something happen, and God sees our sincerity and our efforts, then God makes it happen. Because when we connect ourselves to God, we are connected to God, and our will, if we make it God's will, happens. So it's a beautiful thing, Yom HaAtzma'ut, and we will be celebrating again. There will be no public ceremonies. There's usually a very beautiful, ceremony that all the big politicians and leaders take place in. There's a ceremony of lighting 12 torches representing each of the 12 tribes, and those 12 lighting of those torches go to 12 people who have been chosen to represent Israel because of outstanding things that they've done, achievements that they've done on behalf of society, on behalf of science, on behalf of education, etc., etc. And people are chosen from all over Israel, from all the different ethnicities and communities, and it's a very, very beautiful thing. That will be taking place. But there won't be an audience, a live audience. We'll be watching from home, watching on television, and of course, usually on Yom HaAtzma'ut, people go out, they visit national parks, they picnic. The roads are clogged, there are traffic jams. I usually, I shouldn't even usually, always stay home and celebrate with my family at home. We do the tradition is to do a barbecue, what's known in Hebrew as ala esh, which literally means on the fire. You have a grill and you make yourself a picnic meal. So I'll be doing that in my backyard. Very fortunate to have a backyard. And I imagine many, many other people will be this year, because we are actually, there's going to be a 24-hour lockdown. Again, the government is just very, very cautious and fearful that, people on these occasions will drop their caution and just gather together. It's the most natural thing. And there could be a big spread and spike in the corona infection numbers. And we don't want that to happen. So everybody is going to have a very different Yom HaAtzma'ut this year. But Israel has much to be happy for and much to be proud of. And one of the things that I think we really sincerely can be proud of is the way we have up to this point, and God willing it will continue, been dealing with the corona threat. Israel, I think the fatalities as of today are 204, which are 204 too many, but thank God it is a relatively very low number. And the actual number of people infected and people who are in serious conditions or on respirators has dropped over the past few days. Now, Israel opened up much of commerce and industry just over a week ago. And so they say, we'll see the spike within 2 weeks, meaning we won't really see the effect of that this week, but next week we will begin to see the effect. And it's anticipated that the numbers will jump again, but economies need to be restarted. People need to return to their lives. These things are every bit as essential to life itself as staying in isolation to protect ourselves from the virus. So, enough of that, because everybody's talking virus, and let's talk about this week's Parshat Shavua, this week's Torah reading. It is again a double Torah portion, covering two different sections of Leviticus. First one known by the name Acharei Mot, which means after the death, and the second one known by the name of Kedoshim, which means holy ones. And the reading begins in Leviticus chapter 16, verse 1, concludes Leviticus chapter 20, verse 27. If you take both of these two separate titles and read them together, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim, it means literally after the death of the holy ones. And holy ones in the context of death can also mean martyrs. So this parsha always falls on or about the week of Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day, and Yom HaAtzma'ut. So it's always very poignant. Again, the Hebrew calendar just it's alive, and it's alive throughout all the generations, and every generation, different things resonate, and different things vibrate, and different things flash and stand out. And Acharei Mot-Kedoshim, after the death of the righteous ones, or the holy ones, or the martyrs, to be reading those words in the proximity of Yom HaZikaron is always very, very moving. I saw something today, a very popular news broadcaster was conveying the thoughts of a bereaved father, who was relating to this week's Parsha and the particular situation when people aren't allowed to visit the graves. Acharei Mot begins with, after the death. The death of Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, who we read a few weeks ago of their death. We recall that it was the first day of Nisan, the first day of the divine service in the tabernacle. A fire came down from heaven and began to consume the first korban, the first offering put on the altar. And Aaron's two sons brought in a strange fire. They brought in an unauthorized offering, which proved fatal. And a fire came out and consumed them. They themselves were, as it were, an offering. And so we're back to that. We're right back to, we keep going back to the first day of Nisan. It's so fascinating, and you'll see even in the book of Numbers, we're going to go back to the first day of Nisan every now and again. It's just such a significant day that the Torah can't let us go. We keep being drawn back to it. So what really transpires here in the first of the two parts of Acharei Mot is we're being told description of the Yom Kippur service in the Holy Temple, tabernacle in this case. The avodah, the work, the service of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, which is Yom Kippur. As if you read these words, if you read the parsha, you'll see it's just filled with so much that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, has to perform precisely and, on time throughout the 25 hours of Yom Kippur, that it is a major, major task. And of course, upon his shoulders rests the fate of the entire nation, because he is asking for kapara, he's asking for atonement on his own behalf and on behalf of the entire nation. And even today, without the Holy Temple, Yom Kippur maintains this sense of high drama, tension, anticipation, and a certain tension, but like a joyful tension, because we're working together to make it happen. And even in lieu of the Kohen Gadol today, we're working our way through the same things that he worked through. And in fact, part of the service today is description of the service of the Kohen Gadol in the Holy Temple on Yom Kippur. We'll get back to this in just a moment when we return. Temple Talk.
For 33 years, the Temple Institute has been building and teaching and sharing the truth and beauty of the Holy Temple, striving to prepare Israel and the world for the rebuilding of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, soon in our days.
The Temple Institute is a nonprofit organization. Our ability to continue our work and outreach depends upon you. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations."
Please support the work of the Temple Institute.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. It's Zikaron. Today's still 4th of Iyar, 5780, April 28th, 2020. Yom HaZikaron is a Memorial Day tonight. Yom HaAtzma'ut. We've been talking about this week's Torah reading. I'd just like to mention before we get back to that, we are in the month of Iyar, and we talked about it a bit last week. I'd just like to mention once again that Iyar is known as to be a month of healing, a propitious time for healing, refu'ah in Hebrew. And that is because the letters of the word Iyar in Hebrew, Aleph, Resh, Aleph Yud Yud Resh, is an acronym for the words Ani Hashem Rofecha, I am Hashem, your healer, or your doctor if you'd like, which were spoken to Israel after Israel crossed the Sea of Reeds and was in the place called Marah, where God said, you just follow my statutes, you just, do what I tell you to do, and I will be your healer. And all the diseases that I visited upon Israel, I'm sorry that all the diseases that I visited upon Egypt, I will not visit upon you. And God is our healer, and Iyar makes special mention of that. So, God willing, Iyar will be a tremendous month of healing this year, and the world will emerge from the coronavirus threat, and God willing, will be a better world for it. Let's hope. Let's hope that the time that we've had to spend indoors, the time we've had to spend dealing with it, the time we've had to contemplate that there are things not only much bigger than us and more important than us as individuals, but there are things so tiny that we can't even see them, but they can still be a threat. We're in God's hands, and that's a place of comfort and security if we open ourselves up to it and just connect and be grateful and bring God into our world. Then our comfort and our security grows even stronger, and we can pull through all sorts of things. The month of Iyar, also, again, we talked about it last week, but I'd just like to make further mention that, the month of Iyar, today in the modern time, we have Yom HaAtzma'ut. We have, at the end of the month of Iyar, the 28th of Iyar, is Yom Yerushalayim, a Jerusalem Day, the day of the liberation, unification of Jerusalem in the Six-Day War, 1967 Six-Day War. These are tremendous, tremendous milestones to our Geula, to our redemption, to the eventual rebuilding of the Holy Temple, may it be soon. And of course, there's even a hint of that. We know that in the book of Kings, 1 Kings, chapter 6, verse 1, it mentions that King Solomon began building the Holy Temple on the first day of the month of Ziv, the second month of the year. Well, the second month of the year is this month, the name given to Iyar in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Scriptures, Ziv, which means, just like Iyar, it's a word that means brightness, light, illumination. And that's when the Holy Temple, the first Holy Temple, was begun. It was 7 years in the making before it was finally completed. So, the month of Iyar, which, for many, many hundreds, thousands of years, perhaps it was a bit of a sleeper. It's always been a very important month. I shouldn't say a sleeper, because let's mention some other things. It was the month also that the manna, the man in Hebrew, began to appear on the earth each morning in the desert to nourish the children of Israel, both physically and spiritually, bread from heaven. And it was also the month that the well of Miriam, Be'er Miriam, began to appear and accompany Israel throughout its 4-year sojourn in the desert by the merit of Miriam, the prophetess, and sister of Moshe and Aaron. And so Israel always had water, which itself is not only necessary for physical survival, but it is a symbol of Torah. It's also a symbol of our spiritual survival and nourishment. And so between the manna and the well of Miriam, which both appeared first in the month of Iyar, the generation of the desert was well taken care of, and we also can imbibe from the manna and from the Be'er Miriam, the well of Miriam, if not on a physical level, certainly then spiritually we can connect to it and summon it and be part of it, be part of that spiritually nourishing experience. So Iyar has always been I'm going to restate what I started to say before. Iyar has always been a very significant, important month. And of course, it is the month of the counting of the Omer, which began on the second day of Passover in the month of Nisan and will end on the day before, on the fifth day of Sivan, which is one day before the festival of Shavuot, the festival of receiving Torah at Mount Sinai. But the entire month of Iyar is spent counting each day, making each day count, counting up, not counting down, but counting up, because each day we have the ability to pick ourselves up a little more and to fine-tune who we are and to try to perfect who we are in this world and what we can become, and try to actualize and realize our potential as human beings, created in God's image, created each one of us for a purpose. Each one of us is here because God decided that each one of us should be here. And that really says it all. Because if God decided that you or I should be alive on this earth now, in this generation, then there's a reason. And our life journey is to discover that reason and to make it happen. But all those wonderful aspects of the month of Iyar have been just amplified by these modern events that we celebrate now in the month of Iyar. Again, Yom HaAtzma'ut and Yom Yerushalayim, Independence Day, and Jerusalem Day, these tremendous milestones toward our redemption. So, Iyar is just it's undescribable. It's just a beautiful, beautiful month. And you know what? Take all that and throw into the mix, and it's no coincidence. Throw into the mix that it's springtime, and springtime is always a beautiful, beautiful season of regeneration, of rebirth, of life, and the reason we have springtime is because of Nisan and because of Iyar and because of Sivan, because of this historical, spiritual journey that began at the beginning of Nisan in Egypt, when God commanded Israel, saying, "This is the first of your months, and on the 10th day you'll take a lamb, and on the 14th day you'll slaughter it, and on the 15th day you're leaving Egypt, and 50 days later you're receiving Torah at Mount Sinai." Because of that, it's springtime. Flowers bloom and birds sing and trees grow their leaves and the sun shines and everything is beautiful because there is spiritual regeneration and rebirth and life and energy just pouring out of every fiber of existence. So it's a wonderful time to be alive, and certainly at this time, our time in history is a wonderful time to be alive, and there are many challenges, and God knows that the world has lots of troubles and lots of problems, but we are moving forward, and we, more than ever perhaps, have the ability and the potential to overcome most of these problems, because all the problems that we have, they're all of our own making. So, we can do it. Back to Parashat Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. We mentioned before the first part, Acharei Mot, the first part of Acharei Mot talks about the service of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, that Aaron would perform in the tabernacle. Of course, became the service that was performed in the Holy Temple. As I started to say before, even though we don't have a Holy Temple today, and we don't have a Kohen Gadol, a high priest who is performing that service, a very significant part of the Yom Kippur service that we do perform today in synagogues is a recitation of every detail of what the Kohen Gadol would do. And again, it is a high point in the tefillah, in the prayer of the day of Yom Kippur, because somehow it comes alive, and somehow mentioning it, I guess we were all there. We're all there, because I guess mentioning it just brings it back, and it becomes very vivid and very exciting, and you feel the tension, and you feel the anticipation and the excitement. So I can only imagine what it was and what it will be like in the Holy Temple when we are performing once again the service of Yom Kippur. It's just going to be amazing. And then, following Yom Kippur, in this week's parasha, we begin to see things like this. I'm reading now from Leviticus chapter 18, verse 1. And Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, I am Hashem, your God. Like the practice in the land of Egypt in which you dwelled, you shall not do. And like the practice of the land of Canaan, to which I am bringing you, you shall not do. And you shall not follow their statutes. You shall fulfill my ordinances and observe my statutes to follow them. I am Hashem, your God. You shall observe my statutes and my ordinances, which a man shall do, and live by them. I am Hashem." So this statement, I am Hashem, your God, and you shall do this because I am Hashem, your God. I am Hashem, your God, is over and over and over again throughout the rest of this week's Torah reading and beyond in the book of Leviticus. And this is really an extension of what we were talking about and reading about last week, which was this notion of you shall be holy because I am Hashem, your God, am holy. We are expected to be holy because God is holy. We are expected to be godlike in a way because God is God. And again, the book of Leviticus begins in the newly established tabernacle, which becomes the place of God's presence in the world, where it is the most manifest and the most unadulterated and holy. And it's holy because it's God. And it's life. And so we started to learn last week that why this eating this animal, which is considered to be tahor, pure, and not eating that one, which is tamei. Why is that important? What does it mean? Why is it relevant to the service in the tabernacle? And then so on and so forth. We learned all about last week. We learned all about this type of impurity and the tsarat, the again mistakenly translated as leprosy, and how to deal with it. And it's an issue of purity. And the words purity and impure, or let's say the word tahara, pure, and the word kadosh, holy, and the word, the meaning behind the words, I am Hashem, your God, so you shall do this, are all one and the same. Holiness. And holiness is God's uniqueness. It's life. And what we're being told is that holiness, which is pure and unadulterated in the holy temple, in the tabernacle, is yours to embrace and to bring into your life, your daily life, what you eat and how you behave. And this is what it's all about. This is your privilege. This is your responsibility. This is how far you can take it. So I'm about to say this. I want to say this, very important. We're going to see a lot of things now in this week's parsha. Some things are, observe. It says, every man shall fear his mother and his father, and you shall observe my Shabbatot, my Sabbaths. I am Hashem, your God. Okay, Shabbat we observe because God says to observe it. God's mikdash, his holy temple, is his holy temple. Our parents are the closest thing to God for the children in this world. But, we are told other things. For example, you shall not steal. You shall not deny falsely. You shall not lie one man to his fellow. You shall not swear falsely by my name, thereby profaning the name of Hashem, of your God. I am Hashem. Okay, so you don't steal. We know we don't steal. It's immoral. It's unethical to steal. It's bad to steal. Okay, we know that. We don't really need God to tell us that, and God's already told us that. In the Ten Commandments, we were told that. So we know we can be a good person or a bad person. What does it have to do with being holy? And so what Torah is doing right now is it's elevating the meaning of right and wrong, of good and bad, of ethical. Yes, it's ethical. You know what? You can not steal, you can be honest, and not give a hoot about bringing holiness into your life. But if you understand that the true essence of honesty, of not stealing, of being a good person, you shall not curse a deaf person, you shall not place a stumbling block before a blind person, and you shall fear your God, I am Hashem. It's if you understand that is all part of being holy, it means that all our actions, what we eat, how we care for ourselves, how we treat our bodies, how we treat other people's bodies, how we relate to one another as human beings, it's all part of this amazing concept which is introduced here in Leviticus of holiness. Really, if you think about it, holiness is not really a subject for discussion in the book of Genesis, and not really a subject for discussion in the book of Exodus. Here, boom, it is. Leviticus is infused with this idea of holiness, and again, holiness. God is holy, but holiness God just wants to share with everyone. We all have the opportunity, the ability to bring holiness into our lives, and thus making ourselves holy because God is holy. I've been reading from the chapter 19, and read a little more. I'm going to read now verses 15, 16, 17, and 18. You shall commit no injustice in judgment, and you shall not favor a poor person or respect a great man. You shall judge your fellow with righteousness. You shall not go around as a gossip monger amidst your people. You shall not stand by the shedding of your fellow's blood. I am Hashem. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your fellow, but you shall not bear a sin on his account. You shall neither take revenge from him nor bear a grudge against the members of your people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Hashem. I'm just going to read that last part in Hebrew. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Hashem. Wow, that really is the height. That is the height of all that we've been talking about. Love your neighbor as yourself. Ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Rabbi Akiva, one of Israel's most outstanding great rabbis in history, who lived during the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt, just after the destruction of the Second Temple, said that this is the main clause, the main point of the entire Torah. He said all the rest is commentary. You can contemplate on that. You can think about that and love your neighbor as yourself. How do you do that? How do you do that? What does it mean to love yourself? And what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? Well, you know what? Some say the word for reacha, neighbor, it has the word in it ra, which means evil, bad. So some say, you know what? You have bad in yourself. You need to embrace it in order to turn it into good, and you need to, you need to judge other people for good. And if you see bad, you need to judge that in a positive way as well. That's one interpretation. But certainly, what we have in common with one another is this statement that keeps coming up: I am Hashem, your God. You know, that's what we share together. And that holiness that God is what we share together. If you want to love someone as yourself, you need to see your own holiness and your own goodness and your own purity in order to see it and embrace it in others. If you don't think highly of yourself, you're not going to think so highly of others. If you got a grudge against yourself, you'll have a grudge against others. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It doesn't get better than that. That's what we got to work on, all of us, 24/7. Thank you so much for being with us, and I wish everybody a very, very happy Yom HaAtzma'ut, Israel Independence Day. Celebrate with us. Temple Talk.